MetroEHS. My name is Karen Blanchard. I'm the marketing manager here at MetroEHS, and I'm really excited to share with you a conversation today about how our therapists work together to serve children the best way and the most holistic way possible. I have some really great guests today, and so I'm going to turn it over to them and we can get started. Lots of wonderful information. Hold on till the end. We might have a few questions to answer, and otherwise, we'll see you soon. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, Karen. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited that you are tuning in to learn a little bit more about how therapists can collaborate, how we do this at MetroEHS, and why we think it is so amazing. So my name is Chris Krajewski. I'm the Vice President of Therapy Services here at MetroEHS. By soul and passion, I am a speech and language pathologist. I have been in this field for 34 years. I cannot believe it. And I absolutely love what I do.
Hi, everybody. I am Deanna Coker. I am the Director of ABA here at MetroEHS. I have been a board certified behavior analyst for, I think, this is my 16th year now, and I have been in the field for close to 20 years.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Johns. I am the Director of Physical Therapy here at MetroEHS, and I have my doctorate in physical therapy. I've been with MetroEHS for 3 years now, and I'm a little younger to the field. I only have 5 years total of experience, but I love what I do. I love being at MetroEHS, and I'm excited to continue to grow here.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Short. I am an occupational therapist, and I also echo Chris's statements. I love my job. I have been an occupational therapist for 7 years. I am also the clinic director at our local Davison Therapy Center, and I am also a certified brain injury specialist. And we're excited to have you here with us today.
Thanks, Allison. So I wanted to start today with a vocabulary word for everybody, and the word is collaboration. And here at MetroEHS, this is a word that we use all the time, every day, because it is really the premise around which we build our intervention. Collaboration is a noun, according to dictionary.com, and it means the act of working together toward a common goal or outcome. And I think that definition really embodies what it is we're doing here and why. We are working toward a common outcome. Even though we come from different fields, we can work toward a common outcome together. And we find sometimes, as we've heard before, it takes a village. Many minds working together makes it happen. Teamwork makes the dream work, whatever expression that comes into mind, all true. And so collaboration is what our presentation today is all about.
Awesome. So here at MetroEHS, we love utilizing this visual, our clinical Venn diagram that kind of shows you guys everybody that is encompassing into our collaboration process at MetroEHS. And I want to point out first and foremost, you guys as the client and the family and the caregivers, you are at the center of the circle, always, always, always. No matter what we're talking about, what we might be doing day to day, we are always circling back to how does it best serve you guys and your child. So as you see, we have a lot of different disciplines that play a role here at MetroEHS. We have our ABA team, our PT team, we have OT, we have our speech paths, we have our mental health therapists, and then we have a feeding and swallowing program. So we are really unique that we can offer all of this under one roof. As you can see, all the circles kind of overlap just a teeny tiny bit. And you'll hear more about that later, how some of these disciplines work on similar things in different ways, or how we work on completely different things and incorporate that into our day-to-day sessions. So we all see each other every single day, passing each other's within the hallways, or even passing your child off to the next discipline. So we touch base and are able to just chat throughout the day.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. So, of course, we're here to talk about how the therapists at MetroEHS collaborate under one roof. And we thought we would approach this talk today by addressing sort of the who, what, where, when, why, and how of collaboration at MetroEHS. All right, so let's talk first about who we are and what we do. So we all come from different disciplines and backgrounds. So I would love for each of us to take a minute and talk specifically about what each of our individual backgrounds does.
Yeah, I will kick it off. And so ABA therapy is a little unique when it comes to the population that we can serve. And for us, for a client to be able to receive ABA services, they do have to be diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. So through ABA, we are able to address social and communication deficits to those clients diagnosed with autism.
Thanks, Deanna. So in the world of speech therapy, it's a very broad world where we can work in a variety of settings with a variety of individuals, but the main goal, the main thrust of speech and language therapy is that we address a variety of disorders and challenges in communication. That is our thing, in both children and adults. So some examples of what communication barriers or where barriers might be would be challenges with understanding language, being able to take language from up here and formulate it into something that another person can understand. So formulating thoughts and ideas into language. What somebody's speech sounds like, how intelligible that speech is. Are there speech sound errors? Voice disorders is another area that we may work in as well. So issues and problems with vocal hygiene, taking care of the voice, and managing the voice in the best way, most efficient way. Also, and something very big in our clinics at MetroEHS that we all work together on, is using and helping clients communicate through augmentative and alternative means. So that basically means communicating in ways other than verbal speech. Some of us here are very familiar with AAC, augmentative and alternative communication devices, or picture communication, even gestural communication. And in addition, engagement, right? That very basic level of what's needed before communication can even happen, engagement. Using language in a social context. How do we know how to have a conversation or when to say goodbye? And then finally, reading and writing, because that also is language. It's just a different output modality. Swallowing disorders as well. Wow, we do have a really broad field, don't we?
do. And thank goodness you guys like to do all that, because that is not my scope at all. As a physical therapist, I know ABA and speech is vastly different. PT and OT have a little bit more overlap, but I'm always so grateful that you guys love what you do, because I can't do that. In physical therapy, we address a variety of different neurological and orthopedic conditions. Some of the big neurological conditions you guys might have heard of are autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. Those are like the big name ones people typically have heard about, but we treat really any neurological condition that plays a role within pediatrics. And then we also will treat orthopedic conditions, which is more of those sport injuries. There are other orthopedic conditions such as leg calf Perths. So those are just a few examples. But we at MetroEHS primarily focus on pediatric and children, and we hope to improve their overall day-to-day activity. So working on their strength, their coordination, their balance, their walking, really diving into why aren't they able to jump? Is it the strength? Is it the coordination? Are they jumping but not with the right mechanics? So will it hurt their back in the future years? Really diving in deeper so that your kid can be successful, not just in the moment and down the line, but for the rest of their life.
Yes. As an occupational therapist, the nitty-gritty of OTs are here to help people live life to the fullest, however that may look. We can address a wide variety of developmental delays. We treat orthopedic injuries, also some neurological disorders. We work in conjunction with other disciplines to help with feeding and swallowing disorders. In addition, we can improve cognitive aspects that we need to function throughout our daily life, whether that be attention skills or divided attention skills as well, and working memory. So we work on all of those skills that a lot of us take for granted to improve independence throughout everyday activities of daily living.
Thanks, Allison. So here's a why and a what, right? Why we do what we do. So let's talk a little bit about the main goals or the main objectives in each of our disciplines. What are we working for? What are we striving for? Deanna.
So the main goals of ABA are really to tackle those natural deficits that we see when a child is diagnosed with autism. So those deficits typically are in social communication, social interaction. There may be some sort of like repetitive or restrictive behaviors. And we also tend to see a little bit of a lag when it comes to development of independence with activities of daily living. So things like dressing, feeding themselves, putting on shoes, all of those fun things that just kind of help us be as independent as possible. ABA also really works to make sure that when there is a social deficit, that our means of communicating aren't through disruptive or difficult behaviors, because that is something that can happen very quickly. So we like to take those maladaptive behaviors and really shift them into something that's more functional and more adaptive. So instead of having a tantrum because we can't quite get to others what we want to make sure we're now giving that kid a way to communicate what it is that they're wanting. And so overall, we really develop those communication skills and we decrease any sort of maladaptive behaviors.
Mm-hmm. The goal of OT, we also have a wide scope of practice, but it's a blessing because we can help in many different ways. The goal of OT overall is to improve your child's independence throughout daily functional tasks. For example, handwriting. We also work on dressing, tying your shoes. We help with bedtime routines, before school routines. We also are concerned about play skills. We want to make sure that your child is playing as they should. That's their main job right now, is to play. So we want to make sure that they're doing their main job well and to the best of their ability. We also can work on feeding too, things we take for granted. Again, holding a fork, holding a spoon, being able to scoop and spear that food and bring it to our mouths. So we are concerned with helping your child with all those daily functional skills and work in conjunction, like we're talking about now, with ABA, PT, and speech to work on that common goal together.
Absolutely. Thanks, Allison. For physical therapy, I kind of already mentioned, assist children with those larger gross motor movements. So a lot of people often ask, what's the difference between PT and OT? And although there is a lot of overlap, and OT can also do the big movements and PT can also do the small movements, PTs tend to really hone in on those larger gross motor movements, such as, it seems small, but crawling and walking when your kiddos are little. Also, when your kids get older, we want them to achieve those recess and gym schools. We want them to jump. We want them to be able to engage in hopscotch with their peers, galloping across the gym hallway. Whatever it may be, we want them to be successful where they're at in life.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm glad that you have that goal. It is so important to be able to engage in a physical way with your world. And for speech, we work to help people engage in their world through effective communication. So our job is to uncover what those barriers to effective, meaningful communication might be, and then find strategies to teach communication skills to people to overcome those barriers. So it is all about giving people and empowering them to have a voice to impact the conditions of their own existence and to have an impact on their surroundings. Who does not want that? Another thing that speech pathologists work toward is improving safe, efficient eating and swallowing. It is very important, and you can see a lot of the parallels with OT here, that eating isn't just all about being nutritionally sound, right? It is very much a social experience. It is a pleasurable experience. And so we work together, and speech works on the oral structures in this regard, to make eating efficient, safe, and fun and pleasant, like it should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why do we do it together? I don't know if you've noticed, but I noticed a lot of parallels between each of our sort of ultimate goals as within our professions. But why are we doing this together? Why are we promoting this collaborative approach? And in a nutshell, it's because we think that armed with each of our scopes of practice and working together with a family who has their own scope of practice, by the way, we work toward empowering kiddos and their families to successfully navigate and engage in their worlds. And that's just really boiling all of this down to the bottom line. We want our clients and families to be able to participate, engage, navigate, and be successful in their own environment.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do without you guys as my partners while we treat the same kids. So,
The
so
feelings
important.
are mutual.
All right. So when do we work collaboratively with children? Metro EHS has a very unique model that I love and hold near and dear to my heart, as do all of our therapists that work here. That's why we're here. We strive to treat children very, very young. Obviously, if you bring your kiddo in at 5, 6 years old, we are still more than happy to work with them. But we know utilizing these young brains when they're really spongy and impressionable is when we can make the most difference. So we are really, really trying to reach out to communities and express how important it is to get your child into therapy as early as possible once you start seeing the signs. So we want to get your kiddo in young, and we also really want to work on seeing your child as frequently as possible, up to 5 days a week even, so that we can give them that level of repetition necessary to make the changes in their brain and those neural pathways that connect their brain pathways together, so that they can be successful. And we do so through play, because like Allison and Chris and Deanna have all mentioned, play is the child's occupation. That's how they're going to learn. So we really, really hone in on that as a team, which also means we're collaborating a lot, every single day, almost once an hour at least. We're checking in with each other to make sure we're all on the same page and what we're doing is working and most benefiting this child. So yeah, Chris will say it best, that means we need to see your child early, often, and in the moment.
That's right. That's my mantra. Often and in the moment.
There was a really awesome research done by Dr. Karen Purvis that determined scientists saw it takes about 400 repetitions to create those new brain pathways to help learn a new skill, unless it's done in play, in which case it only takes 10 to 20 repetitions. This, I believe, is done on typically developing children, so it might take a little bit longer for the kiddos we see, but it still holds true that it happens so much quicker when it's done with something you're enjoying and something you're engaged in. And so that's why we really hold play near and dear to our hearts, and right at the center of each of our treatment sessions here at Metro EHS.
That's right, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. It is incredible to think about that those repetitions only take 10 to 20 repetitions to form that pathway through play. So that's, again, why we really focus on a play-based, client-led approach. And as you can see, all of these disciplines, ABA, OT, speech, and PT, we're working together. We share common goals, but we have different routes and pathways to get there. So let's hone in right now on how OT and speech specifically work together. Speech helps OT in so many ways. So when speech and OT are sharing a common client, it's very common for a child to be receiving multiple services at the same time. It's very common for a child that's getting occupational therapy to also be getting speech therapy. This can occur as a co-treat together, or it can occur separately as 2 separate treatment sessions. But ultimately, speech is helping OT to further reinforce the best way that that child can communicate. They're going to give the OT tips and tricks to help them throughout our session so they can communicate their needs and their wants. This also carries over into the home throughout ADL tasks that the OT may be working on. A simple thing such as picking out their pajamas for the evening and getting dressed. The speech therapist is going to have some really great tips and tricks so they can communicate their wants and what they need, and also cue us as their occupational therapist with what their nervous system might need. That's a huge part of OT, is making sure that the child is regulated and in a calm state where they can learn, they can work on those functional communication skills. So OT helps speech by maybe recommending some sensory supports that can be done either in the session concurrently while speech is happening. Maybe during a session, your child is receiving speech therapy in the Lycra swing, which is this beautiful hammock. Or maybe when they're sitting at the table, the OT can recommend some different seating supports that will help support attention, such as like a wobbly chair or sitting on what we like to call a peanut ball. There are so many ways that speech and OT can work together. In regards to AAC devices, like we were speaking about earlier in this presentation, An OT can also help with the visual setup of the AAC device. So whether that be instead of there being 12 icons, maybe there's only 5. We can also suggest some ways to make carrying the AAC device a little bit easier. And the speech therapist, the one who is ultimately getting the groundwork started for the AAC device as well. So we work together in that regard. For our feeding clients, this is a huge overlap, and speech therapy can focus on the true act of chewing, making sure that the tongue is moving in the correct direction, that the chewing pattern and swallowing pattern is safe and efficient. OTs can help with utensil management throughout that task. We can help suggest maybe different plates, different cups, different utensils that make it easier. We can suggest adaptations to help increase independence throughout that task. We can also help with the sensory aspect of feeding, such as different textures. We can do messy play. We all work together to work towards that common goal to help your child meet whatever that pathway is that they need to work on a little bit further.
Yeah, Allison, I just wanted to add, thank you for all of that. That was a wonderful way to lay out sort of how OT and speech work together. And I have been in the field for 30 years, and I can't tell you how much value it has added to my understanding of clients and my treatment toolbox to have been able to work with an occupational therapist, understanding the sensory system and understanding when, if, and how to help clients get those sensory needs met so that that mind is ready and able to learn has been integral to me being successful. So I need OT in many cases in order to reach my goals and objectives.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Beautifully said.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So how does PT and OT work together? I know we already talked about a lot of the overlap that we do see. And PT obviously will collaborate with all of the disciplines, but to just narrow it down and go over one, PT and OT ultimately will collaborate a ton just to improve the overall child's body awareness and autonomy of movement, so that they can engage successfully in their age-appropriate skills or their next skill level up. So that's really fun to work hand in hand with the OTs coming from a PT perspective. Something I love our OTs for, and I'm going to list a whole bunch of things because our OTs help me so much, is navigating and addressing those big feelings and behaviors appropriately to meet the child where they're at and fulfill their needs. ABA also helps with behaviors, but OTs really hone in on like what is a big issue and deserves a big feeling and what might not be so big. If we dropped our ball, is it sad? Yes, but do we need to have a whole meltdown? Maybe not. So I love the OTs. They always help give me some feedback as to how to approach those children, and when they do have big behaviors and big feelings, how to best handle them so that I'm not giving them a traumatic response and I'm caring for them appropriately, but also trying to navigate how to get them back on track. My OTs help promote the right level of assist with ADL. So a lot of the kids will come in, if it's wintertime, they have their winter coats, they have their shoes, their boots. How much can they do? Because from a PT, I just want to help get their shoes off. I'm taking them off for them. But then I talk to my OT, oh no, Jack's really working on tying those laces. Let him figure it out. So then I know to pause and give him some more time before I send him off to mom and dad. I love incorporating those fine motor skills. So the pincer grasp, and Allison, I'm sure you could tell me all the other grasps there are. But working on those fine motor skills within our PT sessions, the most engagement I get with kids is when I've got them working on a puzzle or playing in that sensory bin, kind of distracting them with those sensory and fine motor tasks while I'm sitting them on a peanut ball or making them do a plank and they're putting a puzzle together. So I have to know what their level of skill is in that aspect, or else I'm going to set them up for failure, not only in my own discipline, but in other disciplines. Implementing sensory needs. Thank you, OTs. I don't know what I would do without you. Do they need that really deep compression and to put deep pressure and push something heavy across the room, or do they need something calming and soothing and quiet to re-regulate? I would just be making it up as I go without my OT counterpart. And then some ways PT can help the OTs out in their sessions is that postural support, especially like feeding and swallowing, even with our speech paths. How do we help get them to sit upright? Because if they're not upright and they don't have that level of support in their chest and in the inner workings of their throat and their mouth, they're not going to be successful chewing and swallowing and getting that food down. So how can what I work on and how can they help carry it over into their OT sessions to be most successful? And then sharing activities or positions. A lot of our kiddos love to W sit. It's a common position that kids find themselves in, especially when they're lacking some more structural support and strength. So what are some other ways to sit? You know, can we sit on a peanut ball? Can we sit with our legs straight out instead of that bent W sit? I should have pulled up a picture of W sitting in case you don't know. But it's basically your legs will make a W when you're sitting on the ground and your bottom's on the ground, but both legs kind of go out to the side, also sitting on the ground. So just giving OTs and other disciplines ways to tweak in different postures and movements from a PT perspective into their own sessions.
Yes, and Kelly, that helps so much. Even positioning on the swing. So as an OT, we are using the swings a lot for sensory regulation, but when we work alongside PT, we can help address those goals too for the core strength and stability. So whether you recommend the child to be laying on their belly or like you were just saying, sitting with their legs straight out or sitting in a crisscross pattern, those different postural alignments help us so much.
Absolutely.
Deanna, can you talk about this one?
Yeah, so when a client is diagnosed with autism, the diagnosing physician is typically going to recommend ABA, speech, and OT as a standard treatment package. So I want to talk a little bit how all of those disciplines can work together. And then PT does jump in there when they see that the client has a much larger gross motor issue as well. So the very first thing we look at when a child comes into ABA is, can they communicate with their world effectively? In a lot of cases, no is the answer. And that makes life very challenging for that client. So we immediately want to work with speech to have them really determine, okay, what is going to be the most effective way this child can communicate with their world? Is it with an AAC device? Is it with sign language? Is it with gestures? Is it with making some sounds that the child can make? So we look to speech to help us better understand what's the most effective way this child can communicate. And so once we work with speech and we have that kind of that idea and that method of communication ironed out, then we're able to take that method of communication into ABA and really practice that communication in our world. Mm-hmm. And as we're practicing and as we're getting used to using that communication all the time, we're starting to see a decrease in any maladaptive behaviors that may have been existing when that child came into services. Anytime a child is able to functionally communicate with their world, we just naturally see a decrease in any sort of difficult behavior or a lot of frustration that child may fear or may feel, or maybe any anxiety that child may have around being other people and just knowing they can't communicate with them. And in that time that we are working to collaborate, since we both have eyes on that client, we're able to make changes to their programming pretty quickly so that child isn't getting stuck and isn't making progress and is continuing to be frustrated. We're able to make changes in the moment to really make sure we're meeting those client needs immediately. And then also ABA, if there happens to be a client in a speech session that isn't diagnosed with ABA but may have some problematic behaviors, ABA can come in, ABA can kind of observe a session and be able to give some pointers for how to provide a little bit, a different structure to the session, if that may be the issue, or if the child is just struggling with something going on in the environment, we're able to kind of help pinpoint some triggers to these problematic behaviors.
Deanna, thank you for that. I wanted to just add, so from my experience as a speech pathologist, what I really admire about BCBAs, board certified behavior analysts, these are our ABA professionals, is that they have really been educated and are very skilled at breaking problems down into itty bitty little manageable bites. And they help us do that too when we're working with our
Absolutely.
clients, right? So sometimes we might see something taking place, maybe a behavior, but we can't quite mitigate that behavior unless we have somebody who's very systematically able to break it down into its little bitty components. And then from that level, we can work toward that improvement. So I highly value working with ABA professionals because they have that skill just in their DNA. It's how they are. And it's why they're so good at what they do. And of course, it really helps to know how to deal with certain big feelings and big behaviors should they happen, right? Of course, we want to always avoid them happening. So our BCBAs are also very skilled at helping to identify what some of those sort of trigger events might be that are causing some struggling behaviors. So man, before, during, and after, having a BCBA on board before, during, and after behavior it's just invaluable. And I really value the experience I've gotten and what I've learned in this collaborative network, right?
100%.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chris.
you're welcome.
Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is OT, because just like communication and ABA go hand in hand, OT and ABA go hand in hand. Clients diagnosed with autism have very unique sensory needs, and each client is different. So we have to do a lot of deep diving into seeing what is it that that client may need. What is it in the environment? What is it with the things that they have next to them? What is it with the things that they're hearing? So that is something that I think if we are able to identify from the very beginning of services, everybody's session goes so much better. We are fulfilling those needs for the client. We have worked together. We have communicated on what we're seeing throughout each day. And overall, the client just feels more happy and engaged while they're in services with us. We also work hand in hand with OT to identify some regulatory strategies. So when we are overwhelmed in our environment and when those big feelings come up, like Chris was talking about, what can we do to effectively kind of calm down or bring our bodies back down? It's been absolutely invaluable to have OTs right there and really be able to give a lot of pointers to, help either avoid if possible, but if not, how can we kind of bring it back down in an effective manner? When working closely with OTs, just like speech, we're able to very quickly modify client programming to make sure they are being as successful as possible. So anything we see that may just not be working for that specific client, we're able to work together to change. So if something's changed in one session over here, it's carried over into the next session, and that client is able to practice all skills consistently in every environment. And same with speech. If there is a client in an OT session that may not be diagnosed with autism, but does have some challenging behaviors that we need to work through, BCBAs are able to go in and to observe and to, help identify those triggers, like Chris pointed out, and just provide those suggestions on how to either prevent the behaviors from occurring or how to structure things differently, or even how to respond appropriately if a behavior does occur.
I agree, Deanna. I think that I have learned so much through working closely with BCBAs to prevent certain behaviors from occurring in my session. So when OT and ABA are able to work so closely together, we can prevent certain behaviors from even occurring in our session. We can remove potential triggers. And like you were saying, those sensory needs, whether that child is really seeking out certain inputs or whether they're very sensitive to certain inputs, that is typical to change as time goes on, as that child progresses. So Deanna, I just echo your statements that we help clients get better quicker when we work together. And as they continue to grow, our treatment plans continue to grow with them.
Absolutely.
Well said. So at the center of our Venn diagram, as you may recall from earlier, is you, the family member, the caregiver, the child, that unit. And so you are part of this collaboration when you come and join us at Metro EHS. We want and need families' input and information in order to help create a treatment plan that has a positive impact on that child's world, right? We don't live out there in that world. We live in our world. But when we can get you to come and join us and collaborate with us, we can, in essence, set our goals and objectives so that they reflect the world that we are trying to get our kiddos out in participating in. So including family, including caregivers, it is crucial in our view to help us meet the needs within that home, within that life, within that world. But it also helps us to have you on board with us, because when we are sometimes working on skills in clinic, it shouldn't stop there. We would love to have our families on board with us and help us work on those same skills at home, right? That is where the skills need to be had. And that is what we're all shooting for and working toward, right? Your participation really drives the success in this whole project, because your scope of practice is your child. You know what you need to see them being able to do in their world. And we have different scopes of expertise that help get you to that point. And you are a huge part of that.
Definitely. We couldn't do it without you guys.
Nope.
All right. So where you can find us and help collaborate with us about your child. Thankfully, Metro EHS has 17 clinics, all within and surrounding the Metro Detroit area. And I feel like we're constantly growing. So there might be more popping up near you soon. So we just wanted to list out the 17 locations we have at this moment. And if you are interested in learning more and or signing your child up, feel free to reach out. You can take a look at the website. There's a little bit more information out there about each discipline, as well as just other options of more locations. So take a look at our website if you're interested, give us a call, and hopefully we can help reveal the super in your child.
That's right.
This was so great, you guys. Just so much information that is so important for parents to understand. And I even think therapists who are considering coming on to work with us, I think can benefit from this information to see how it works and how we work together. And you guys have such a cooperative and collaborative spirit. And I'm so thankful for that. I do have one little question, so hopefully you guys can answer on spur of the moment. When we bring in kiddos, it's one-on-one with their therapist. How does this work, this collaborative spirit work if you're working one-on-one with a kid? We don't all pounce on the kid at once, right? So can you kind of describe a scenario to me about how this works?
Well, as much as we love children, we don't pounce upon them all at once. Sometimes it is hard to resist, but no. So we do have sessions that are individual oftentimes. So we have speech therapy sessions that maybe are one-on-one with a therapist and a child, or PT sessions and so on. Sometimes we have a different arrangement where we have co-treatments. Co-treatment refers to the situation where the two therapists are working with one child at the same time. And the reason that we do that is because the presence of both of those therapists in that session are necessary. I need Kelly in that session in order to have my child be very successful and for us to meet our targets. Kelly needs me in that same session so that she can be successful with her treatment planning and meeting her targets. So it is very much mutually beneficial for everybody. And of course, the big winner here is our client, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do have one-on-one sessions and say speech, maybe this kiddo comes to see Chris on Mondays and they come to see me on Tuesdays. And there isn't that co-treatment or that easy handoff. Usually if I'm taking my kid and walking them over to speech, I'm like, hey, they did great. We worked on this, or hey, we really struggled with this today. Just be mindful of it. So that's an easy way to collaborate, but we also have really amazing collaborative workstations at Metro EHS where the therapists have time to sit down together and collaborate and talk. And then we also offer and host these meetings weekly, bi-weekly, depending on the clinic, to just chat about your specific kid and any overlaps and when we can see them graduating from therapy as a team. We want us all to be on the same page about when can we get your kiddo back into their full-time real life play-based job of just living.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so we have sort of formal methods of collaboration, right? These meetings Kelly was referring to, for example, where the whole team gets together and we have an agenda to discuss this one person. But my favorite way of collaborating is really the informal collaboration. It is sitting around at lunch and having a really deep conversation about the best way to approach XYZ issue, and having so many different people give perspective on that because we're all there. Or those times when, and it does happen, when you're in a therapy room and you stick your head out the door and you say, can someone come and take a look at this? Or I could use another hand here. And vroom, you have people there from a variety of different lenses and scopes ready to assist if that's needed, or to provide strategies, or to set up the environment differently for you so that you can have success in that moment. So we have formal means of collaborating. We have some informal means of collaborating.
And we also have a lot of shared therapy space. So we also, as therapists, even though we may be treating, we spend a lot of time together on a daily basis as well. And so it's just natural that that informal collaboration is happening all the time.
Yes, and one of the benefits of that informal collaboration is, let's say a child is only receiving ABA services, and if that BCBA feels that a referral could be helpful to speech, OT, or PT, that BCBA is going to advocate for that child with their pediatrician and get those referrals in place. And vice versa. If there's a client who's getting speech services only right at first, but the speech therapist is noticing some deficits and some gross motor delays, or their coordination overall, some sensory concerns, they will advocate for your child and make sure that all services are on board when and if necessary.
Wow.
Very important.
One of the reasons why I love working at Metro is because it's so clear that everything we do keeps the child in the center. And I mean, everybody works around just whatever we can do to improve the life and the future of these little ones that come to us. And it's so apparent in the way all of you guys talk and the way you work together. It's just a beautiful thing. So I'm very grateful to work with you guys and for Metro. We want to thank everybody so much for watching and listening today. We have many more episodes for you to look out for. Go ahead and see what Metro has to offer. We've got billing information. We have IEP information. All of our other disciplines are featured in different webinars. This is all free and available for you to learn how we help kids holistically at Metro, and how we put your kid and your needs in the very center of everything that we do. Like Kelly said earlier, all of our locations are listed on the website, so please go there and find out how close we are to you, and if Metro EHS is right in your neighborhood. Go ahead and give us a call and reach out. I do want to give a teaser for next month. Next month, we're going to talk about toe walking and what that is, and should you be concerned about it, and how soon you need to address it. We've got some very experienced folks here at Metro who can help answer those questions for you and give you some ideas of how you can help at home. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.